What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's college football related, sports related. We have a good time. I'm apologizing in advance for going 2 hours ahead of schedule because we had some news drop and I had a thought about it. And I just decided to make like Blake and Glenn Ross and just get after it and go anyway, whether or not they're all in the room or not, because y'all will get to this at some time because this is the biggest story in the Big Ten and the biggest story in the college football playoff as I see it to date. And this has been a wild, and we keep using this word unprecedented season, but that's just the truth. The first thing we need to talk about is Bruce Feldman's report in Michigan has had to cancel its game with Maryland this weekend due to COVID issues within the Wolverines program. This obviously puts the game in jeopardy. The game for the uninitiated is Ohio State versus Michigan, with this game taking place in an empty Buckeye Stadium in 2020. We're supposed to, right, next Saturday. It's a very big deal, and it's huge for Ohio State on a number of reasons. The first of which is that they lost the game against Illinois last Saturday due to an outbreak of COVID positives in their program. They went back to practicing on Tuesday in the hopes of playing against Michigan State in East Lansing on Saturday. Now, canceling the game against Maryland also helps you get into a position to be able to be healthy to play against Ohio State next Saturday because, quite frankly, there's a lot on the line here from a competitive balance standpoint and from a television viewership standpoint as much as anything else. But the competitive balance aspect of it is what I really want to talk about and kind of get at this from some history that I am really deep into right now, because many of you know that I'm writing a black history of the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921. And a part of that is researching how Oklahoma was formed as a state. And you'd be amazed at how I see the similarities between Oklahoma territory and Indian territory and statehood coming into play. We have a bunch of people that are willing to bend rules that they already put in place themselves to try to make this game a lot more friendly to them. So many of you know that starting with the Indian Removal Act 1832, 5 civilized tribes, as they were called, Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, Seminole, all spent over Chickasaw, all sent to this place called Indian Territory, right? Removed from the rest of the United States so that they could have this land to themselves. Well, when you know the railroad, among others, want to come through here, there's a bunch of folks calling themselves boomers that want to set up colonies in this place and commercialize it and capitalize it and really turn it into a capitalist space, all while we have whole nations that live here. But they're living by the rules that were drafted by those folks originally. So I'm just really interested to see what exactly happens when we're talking about changing the rules for the Big Ten championship game so that Ohio State can get in, because this would be the Big Ten making sure that Ohio State gets into the title game with an opportunity to get into the playoff. I see that as bending the rules for a team that is obviously your favorite, but also at the expense of competitive play and the rules that you laid out. Now, the 14 athletic directors, according to Adam Rittenberg over at ESPN, all have to sign off on any changes to these COVID protocols. That might happen, but for that to happen, you also have to admit that there is no other team here that you're worried about. Now, if Northwestern was in this position and not Ohio State, would they probably do the same thing? Not sure, right? I am saying that your sense of fair play is being undermined here, and we're really playing with dignity and integrity as much as we are playing football. And I can't get behind that, man. There's got to be, there has to be rules that you set out that you are willing to engage and push forward just because that's what you do with integrity and dignity. I also think that this is wild and interesting because there are people that don't see a problem with changing the rules for Ohio State even as they set out these rules that were supposed to be for the other 14 or 13 teams in this conference as well. Now, could you reschedule another game if Michigan can't play? Yeah, that's fully within, I think, the rules, but we actually haven't seen that done, right? So you'd have to, or I should say that's integrity, right? That's not within the rules. You have to change the rules so that can happen, because there's a bunch of teams in the Big Ten that would love to play more football, regardless of whether or not they play in the Big Ten championship game, because that's what's here. You could also make the cynical argument that the Big Ten decided to play football so the Ohio State could get into the playoff. I don't think that that's true either, because you can't have it both ways. You can't say that all that matters is that we want to play football without also saying, hey, it matters that we want to play football, but we want to play for a championship. We want to play for a national championship, which means that you're putting out front what matters is winning the national championship, not winning the Big Ten championship, not playing football. And that's what the playoff culture has done. Problem with this is that the playoff culture that we have created with 4-team playoff, where we have a selection committee that invites them, is the fairest that we've seen in college football. It doesn't make it fair. It just makes it the fairest that we've seen, right? Getting back to this history of Oklahoma, it became progressively more fair. Doesn't mean that it is fair, because when you layer in the 5 nations and you layered in the Creek freedmen, because in some way, shape, or form, black folks were coming over with Native Americans either as slaves or intermarried, and then you layer over the top of that, you have boomers that want to come into the state itself where they don't have any rights, and then you get Oklahoma territory, and then you get Indian territory, and you get to split up Oklahoma into these really wild spaces, and then you got the Dawes Commission, and you got the Dawes Rolls, where you got allotments going to different people after you had sold the land and bought the land. Like, there's all sorts of treaties and laws that are being rewritten and reinterpreted over the course of about a short amount of time, really like 1889 to about 1907. So you're talking about 30 years tops there. And I see this just in accelerated space when we're talking about the playoff amid a pandemic, which is also, I think, getting lost inside of this. The kids got to be healthy. The players got to be healthy. The coaches got to be healthy. Folks around the community got to be healthy at a time when we're seeing the numbers continue to go up. So I applaud the Wolverines for saying, hey, look, we're not healthy enough to play. But I also think that you got to live with whatever happens next. If you're an Ohio State fan, if you're a Big Ten fan, and if you're a college football fan. Because I'm not necessarily interested anymore in who plays in the playoff. Like, I would love to see Ohio State get there because I think they're a good team. I'd also love to see Notre Dame, Clemson bounce each other out if that's what happens in the ACC championship game, but they might be there. Alabama and Florida, Alabama could lose that game against Florida, still get into the playoff because we still think they're one of the best teams. Like, that doesn't interest me so much as the integrity of the sport, because I think that's what we're playing with right now. But you could also make the argument that the sport has never been intent on absolute integrity, because I believe that college football has been an oligarchy for some time, right? That said, that's where we are, right? Like, I keep wanting to expand the playoff while also ignoring that we have to play within the playoff rules today, something that I got to get better at. But I don't agree that the Big Ten should change the rules so that they can get a team into the playoff, though I understand why that's a big deal for the Big Ten and for Ohio State. I mean, they all came back in the form of Sean Wade, Wyatt Davis, and Justin Fields never even opted out even the once, always saying, I just want to play so they could get to this game. I also understand that them's the breaks, man. Like, it sucks in the same way that it sucks that Chris Olave slipped in the back of the end zone on a pass that probably ends in a completion and wins Ohio State the Fiesta Bowl and a chance to beat LSU in the national championship. That's what everybody wanted to see happen again. But this is life, right? It doesn't always go your way. And when it doesn't go your way, admit that it's not going your way, man. You know, like, that's the thing. I got real issues with this because I don't know that we're actually putting in front the integrity of the sport.